Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining me here today. We're going to start with some opening prayers. There's a link to the opening prayers in the description of this video, and we will say these in Tibetan, but feel free to read along in English if you'd like. We'll chant this first prayer 3 times, and then the next ones we'll chant 1 time each. Om Organ yogi num jansam pemage sa dompola yatsen chogi ngorupne pemajong ne jesurak kordu kandro mangpokor ketki jesudak druki jinji lopchi ashek suso guru pelma city home. Organ yogi num jansam pemage sa dompola yatsen chogi ngorupne pemajong ne jesurak kordu kandro mangpokor ketki jesudak druki jinji lopchi ashek suso guru pema city home. Organ yogi num jansam pemage sa dompola yatsen chogi ngorupne pemajong ne jesurak kordu kandro mangpokor ketki jesudak druki jinji lopchi ashek suso guru pema city home. Kunzando sem garab shiri sing pema kara jepani shunga sozo namna taten katsa so kate lama namla sowaden. Ogmin choki yinki podrana dusum sange kongi ngowonit rangsem choko ngotsun tonset pe tsawe lama namla sowaden. Sashi pochu chu ching me to tram rirab ning shi ni de kempadi sange zing du mikte polwai droko nam da ching la cho parshok tram guru ratna mandala putsa mega samudra saparana samaye ahom. Semchen namki sampadang loyi jejak jitawar jeton tomon tepahi joki kolo kordu som. Alright, so we're going to start with a brief meditation to stabilize our minds. So meditation is the natural state of mind when it's relaxed, stable, and open. When our mind is calm and settled, there is a spaciousness that allows time between action and reaction. But usually our minds are just busy and distracted instead of calm and settled. And when the mind is too agitated and wound up or out of control, the mind controls you rather than the other way around. And the point of meditation is to create space in your mind. We're training our mind to be calm and relaxed, yet also alert and wakeful. And creating space in the mind helps us to balance our emotions and is the first step in the development of bodhicitta, which is the compassionate wish to free all sentient beings from suffering. We need space in our minds if we're going to contemplate the Buddhist teachings. We need space in our minds in order to be able to perceive our own habits and work our way out of them. We need space in our mind in order to contemplate and develop in the practice of emptiness. So this first practice of meditation to develop space in our mind is really the starting point. It's a good foundational point to start because the space that we develop in our minds, that we open up in our minds, that is the space with which we have to practice and to engage in other spiritual practices. So this benefits any spiritual practice you do in the future. Just have a little bit of space in your mind. So sit comfortably with your back straight, and you can sit on the floor like I am, or you can sit in a chair. You might need a cushion under your bum to keep your back in the right position. And you can just place your hands in your lap. You can either just set them on your knees, or you can place your right hand in your left hand with the thumbs touching, and put your hand so that the meeting point of your thumbs is directly below your navel. That helps create posture with your open shoulders, straight back. And then we're going to keep our eyes slightly open during this meditation. A lot of people meditate with their eyes closed, but in this tradition, we meditate with our eyes slightly open. So you can allow your gaze to just follow the line of your nose, to kind of just angle downward. And you can find a point kind of in the middle space in front of you to rest your eyes. And then place the tip of the tongue behind your front teeth. Just gently right behind your front teeth. So we're in our meditation posture. Our eyes are gazing downwards. Our tongue is behind our front teeth. Our mouth slightly open so we can breathe in and out in a relaxed way. Allow yourself to relax completely and breathe normally. Don't try to control your breath at all. Just allow your natural rhythm of breath to occur. And then put the most gossamer thin attention on your breath. It's like taking your pulse. You don't put any pressure on it, just observe it. Your attention is like a feather, gently riding on the surface of your breath. And when your thoughts come and try to distract you from your breath, don't follow them down the road. You don't have to look at your thoughts and examine them. You don't have to judge yourself or your thoughts. It's normal for thoughts to come and try to interrupt your practice and stir you up. That's okay. Anytime you notice yourself following a thought down the road, just drop it and come back to that gossamer thin attention on the surface of your breath. Thought carries you away, drop it. Back to the breath. Right back to that gossamer thin attention on the surface of your breath. So we'll meditate like this for 5 minutes. So that stabilizing the mind meditation is something that we can do, pretty much any time. I mean, not when you're driving or cooking or things, but if you just have a moment, you can sit down and do that anytime. You can just take a moment to sit down quietly. Even if it's just 30 seconds, even 10 seconds, just taking a moment to check in with your breath and stabilize your mind. It's a better habit than what our normal habits are. So even if you only have a few minutes a day, or if your tolerance level is low, if you're new to meditation and you can do just 2 minutes of meditation at a time, and that's all you feel ready for, that's plenty. That's plenty to start with. But doing a little bit of meditation on a regular basis, day by day, will slowly help to build that habit of creating space in the mind and not just chasing our thoughts around constantly. So chasing our thoughts around constantly, that's really our normal state of being. We're so busy all the time in our minds. Our minds are constantly busy and distracted and chasing thoughts here and there, and getting all wrapped up in ordinary things in our lives. Our daily busyness, our daily busy, let me go to work, let me call this person, I have to go to the store, I have to cook dinner, I have to do this, let me think about this, what should we watch on TV, blah, 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 just like busy radio show in your head all the time. And all of the things of your life, the ordinary things in your life, there's not much value in the vast majority of it. There's not a whole lot of value in there. And yet we are entranced by it. We are so entranced by the minutia of our thoughts and the minutia of our lives. It's like sugar candy. We just can't stop eating it. We can't or bad TV. We just can't turn away from it. We're hooked. We just keep binging on the next episode and the next episode and the next episode. What's the next drama my mind's going to cook up? What's the next drama that'll pop up in my daily life? We just keep wanting to binge watch it. We're asleep at the wheel, basically, just binge watching this TV of distraction. And even when we meditate or pray, spending just a few moments focusing on what's deep and meaningful, those busybody thoughts creep in and carry us away. As you're sitting there meditating just now, you likely had a lot of thoughts come and knock. You're like, hello, hi, this is some insecurity here to, chatter away in your head. Oh, hi, here's a thought about what a good meditator you are. You're being a really good meditator today. You focused on your breath for a whole second. Good job. That's a thought. That's a judgment. That's the stuff that we pay attention to. It calls our attention and we immediately turn to it. It kind of has us whipped. So those busy, ordinary minutia thoughts are constantly creeping in, distracting us, even when we're trying to do something meaningful. We try to practice. We're thinking of the Buddhas. We're visualizing the Buddhas, and then you might be visualizing Amitabha in front of you, and yet you're actually kind of like writing an email in your head, or replaying a conversation you had with someone, or maybe you're kind of on to thinking about what you're going to be making for dinner. You've got some like limited time this evening, so you're trying to plan ahead, and we're so used to multitasking in our days. I think we bring that habit into our practice and our meditation, and we think, oh, I'll just think about that while I'm having this quiet moment. We can't really stop ourselves. It's just such an ingrained habit to be thinking about these ordinary, just the minutia. It just fills up our head. I've been thinking lately, though, that it's so rare that we experience the opposite. How often do we get carried away by thinking about the Dharma? Right? How often does it happen in the opposite way? Are you more likely to daydream about the Bachelor or about the Buddhas? Do you find yourself saying to your partner, I'm sorry, honey, can you say that again? I was daydreaming about Manjushri. I was just really caught up thinking about his excellent qualities and how much I want to attain them. That's not the thing that distracts us. We get distracted from our ordinary BS by other ordinary BS that's going through our head. We're not distracted from that ordinary BS by thoughts of our teachers or our gurus coming into our head, like, oh, I'm so sorry, I was just thinking about my guru and this teaching she gave, and so I wasn't paying attention in this work meeting. That's unlikely to happen. We're more likely to think about the meeting while we're in a teaching listening to our guru. And it's sad, honestly. We get distracted thinking about these mundane things like work and emails and shopping and gossip and what's for dinner, because that's our habit. Our habit is to be self-involved, seduced by the five senses, and only thinking of our own temporary happiness. It goes against the grain of our habits for us to turn our minds to the benefit of all sentient beings. That is so against the grain of our habit of thinking of ourselves. So contemplating the four thoughts that turn the mind pricks the bubble of this delusion so that we can wake up. It pricks that bubble of self-obsession, this delusion of our ordinary lives being meaningful and bringing us lasting happiness. It pricks the delusion that we have all the time in the world to do the things we want to do, and especially all the time in the world to achieve enlightenment. So pops that delusion. Pops the delusion that we are the most important being there ever was, and that our experience is really what's most important. Pops that delusion. So contemplating the four thoughts that turn the mind, we can come to understand the preciousness and the impermanence of our human life. We can understand the actions that we should adopt or abandon so that we don't waste our lives. And we can develop a deep resolve to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings who are suffering just like us. And this creates a firm foundation for our spiritual practice. So what are the four thoughts that turn the mind? The first of the four thoughts is the freedom and opportunity of our precious human existence and the difficulty of obtaining it. The Buddha taught that it is exceedingly rare to obtain a human life. We might not think this is so. There's 7 billion of us after all, but we can see this for ourselves if we consider that, for instance, the biomass of all the ants on Earth outweighs the biomass of all humans. Pretty amazing, right? And, krill, the little itty bitty sea creatures that whales eat, a lot of other fish eat them too, but there's those itty bitty sea creatures that whales eat. There are 500 trillion krill in the oceans. 500 trillion. There's only 7 billion of us. And there are animals inside of us too. Our own parasites outnumber us. That's just the animal kingdom. If we zoom out a bit and we think of Carl Sagan's pale blue dot, of how small this planet is in the vast space of the cosmos, the number of beings that exist not just on our world, but in all of the 3,000 myriads of universes, it puts our lives in perspective, doesn't it? Our existence is as insignificantly small as a speck of dust. We think we are so important. A human existence in which you're born, you live, you die, and then your consciousness just moves on to the next experience is just an ordinary human birth. What makes our human rebirth precious is the freedom and leisure to practice. The leisures and endowments are extremely difficult to obtain. And if you have met the Dharma and embarked on spiritual practice, then you've won the cosmic lottery. You better invest your winnings wisely, because this opportunity is unlikely to come again anytime soon. And it's a limited time offer that can end at any moment. Which brings us to the second of the four thoughts, which is death and impermanence. This human body is not a permanent situation. The Buddha taught that all compounded things are impermanent. They have no true inherent existence. Because our bodies are composed of compounded elements, they are impermanent, which means that we'll die. We know that. We technically know that. But we try to distract ourselves from this fact with distractions and makeup and Snapchat filters and, everything we possibly can. We try to distract ourselves from the fact that we are inching closer and closer to death with every breath we take. But running from the truth only leads to more suffering. Gyaltsen Rinpoche says, the Vajra words taken from the root terma are as follows. Whosoever and whatsoever is born is impermanent and must die. These are Avalokiteshvara's exact words, and they mean that there are no exceptions to the truth of impermanence. No matter what caste or family one belongs to, no matter what kind of situation one is born into, no matter how much wealth one has accumulated, no matter what the case may be, if one has been born into this world, one's name has already been signed to the death certificate. It's certain that we will all die. Whosoever and whatsoever is born must die. As long as there is birth and cyclic existence, there is death. What is uncompounded is not impermanent. What is compounded is always impermanent. That means that everything that we try to possess, everything that we obtain and try to maintain over the course of our lives, our wealth, our status, our career, our relationships, our friendships, the moment we die, those all become meaningless. None of it does us any good. We can't take anything with us when we die. None of our possessions, none of our relationships, none of our reputation or fame, anything that we work towards in this life is basically a sandcastle that's going to be washed away by the ocean of existence, by just the wave of death will come and wipe it all away. And you start over again, trying to seek happiness by, trying to obtain happiness by chasing it. And chasing happiness, you'll never reach it. So we spend most of our time pursuing comfortable situations that we think will last and make us happy over and over and over again, lifetime after lifetime. But when we come to understand the truth of things, that all compounded phenomena is impermanent, we will let go of our attachment to the ephemeral sandcastles of worldly concerns, which keep us distracted from what is truly meaningful. Gyaltsen Rinpoche says, have you wasted a lot of your life until now? Are you thinking about that now, or are you busy thinking about new projects ahead? You should spend more time contemplating the impermanence of life, not new projects. You really think that up until now you have been involved with extremely important projects, and that your endeavors have been crucial to your existence and to the existence of others. But is that really the case? Think very carefully about what all that effort has produced. How has it affected others? Isn't it the case that the importance we ascribe to our projects and endeavors is really only in our own minds? What would happen if we didn't have so many projects? The third thought that turns the mind is the law of karma, or cause and effect, action and result. The Buddha taught that all of the circumstances of our lives are the consequences of our past actions. And the actions that we engage in now are sowing the seeds of our future experiences. Karma not only determines our future rebirth as a god, animal, human, or hell being, but also what the fabric and detail of our lives will be like. Positive karma results in pleasant experiences, and negative karma results in negative experiences. Perseverance in the practice of virtuous Dharma is the cause for becoming a Buddha. Whatever negativity we create, we will wander in the 6 realms accordingly. That's what the Dharma says. So because we don't experience the effects of our karma instantly, we perceive life's events to be happening at random, and we feel victimized by them, not realizing that we created these circumstances for ourselves a long time ago. You can imagine a seagull perched on a rock, casting a shadow on the rock. When the seagull flies away, he thinks he has no shadow. But when he lands, his shadow is there again. In the same way, the effects of our actions follow us like shadows, whether we realize it or not. Chagdatuku says, a single seed will produce a whole tree with many branches, flowers, and fruit, and each fruit will contain even more seeds. The smallest seed of anger will produce great suffering for ourselves and others. By the same token, even a small act of generosity or compassion will produce great happiness. We usually don't know what will come from the seeds we sow. They lie dormant in the mind for a long time, and when they finally begin to sprout, we have forgotten having planted them at all. Eventually, though, they will bear fruit. The 4th thought that turns the mind is the suffering that pervades cyclic existence. The cycle of existence, the Buddha taught that the cycle of existence is composed of 6 realms: the gods, demigods, humans, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell realms. And the cycle of existence is like a closed jar in which all sentient beings are like trapped flies. And whether we're born in the higher or lower realms, which is like being born in the top or the bottom of the closed jar, no matter what, we're never outside the jar of samsara. It's called the cycle of existence because we circle around and around that jar, taking rebirth in one after another of the 6 realms as a result of our own actions, which, whether positive or negative, are tainted by attachment. That attachment is what keeps us inside of the jar. So each of these realms is dominated by a particular kind of suffering, caused by a particular kind of karma. So depending on the type of karma that we create will determine where in the jar we're reborn and what our experiences are like there. Hungry spirits suffer from hunger and thirst, animals from stupidity, hell beings from heat and cold, humans from birth, old age, sickness, and death, demigods from warfare, and even gods have their suffering. So contemplating suffering doesn't sound like fun. That's always the point when people are like, well, I don't know. Do I really want to be a Buddhist? I don't know if I want to contemplate suffering. But it's so important. The Buddha did not tell us to contemplate suffering because he just wants us to get depressed. It's not about that at all. It's actually a motivator, and you just have to understand that all sentient beings are suffering. Jetsuma says that we have to understand that all sentient beings are suffering if we're going to practice the Buddhist teaching with any meaning. We can't just live in our la-la lands and think that we're going to be able to dig deep and practice with the depth needed to achieve supreme enlightenment in one lifetime, right? We're not going to be able to do that if we're just like, la, 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 life is perfect, love and light. That's not really going to motivate you. Why practice if everything's love and light, right? Just bliss out. But if you understand that all beings are suffering, you understand that there is not an inch of space in samsara where there is lasting happiness. There's not a single career or life form or possession that you could have that would bring you lasting happiness. And when you understand that, you finally start to drop your attachment to all this nonsense, and you start paying attention to what's important. So Jetsama says, now I have to ask you, she's talking about suffering here. Now I have to ask you, have you really seen that with your own heart, with your own eyes, with your own mind? Have you seen that all sentient beings are suffering? If you have seen that you are suffering, then let me describe a funny little thing that you still do that cannot coexist with that knowledge. You have circumstances throughout the day and throughout the month, the year, your life, that either please you or displease you, that either make you happy or make you unhappy. You may think, oh, I'm really down today. Then you talk to someone and someone has an upbeat thing to say to you. It's meaningful, it's good, and it pleases you. So what happens to you? You go up, right? There's a nice sense of warm fuzzies and you go up. So we can imagine all sorts of circumstances where this happens in our life. Let's say you wake up in the morning, it's kind of a gray day. You wake up feeling kind of like flatline, gray. Let's say let's say that you are someone who does a daily spiritual practice, or maybe you're a renunciate, a monk or a nun, or you're just committed to your practice. And so, maybe you wake up and you manage to get in all of the practices that you do in the morning, and you have a pretty good practice. You feel pretty good about it. And so, you feel buoyant, you feel stable, your visualization, you're able to hold your visualization well. It's that, magical thing that happens every now and again. You had a good practice. So then you go have some breakfast, and your breakfast, maybe your breakfast is just delicious, and you're on, you're feeling much better now than when you woke up. You had a good practice and you're feeling good about yourself, and your breakfast is delicious, and you're gonna have a great day. You've got a great day ahead of you, and this is, you're a real, morning is your time, and this is the day. You're good. And then maybe you go outside, you're ready for work, you're on your way to have a great day, and you walk outside and you step in dog shit. And, maybe then after that, maybe maybe you get a flat tire. Maybe you run into traffic and you're late to work. And so your perfect day is looks like it's not going to turn out the way you thought. And you're just slammed all day with stuff. There's one thing comes up after another. And so you don't have any time to eat lunch. You don't have any time to eat dinner. Maybe maybe you grab a bag of chips or something like that. You're not eating well. And so then maybe that night you try to practice again, and maybe it doesn't go so well. That's the worst thing, is when you feel like you've had a bad practice and things aren't going so well. So our mind just is going up and down, where our breakfast is delicious, like, woo, we're having a great time. We stepped in dog poop. Woo, down that roller coaster goes, up and down. Our boss complimented us on something at work. We go up. And I don't know, we break a nail. Down. The Jetsama says, you say that all sentient beings are suffering and that the end to suffering is enlightenment, yet you allow your mind to be satisfied going up and down according to circumstances. All of the beings that you say are suffering are doing the same thing. Has anyone achieved happiness by allowing the mind to float on that ocean of concept that we call samsara, affected by circumstances, lifted up by what we call high circumstances, put down by what we call low circumstances? No one, never. The Buddha tells us that samsara is not happiness, that the contrivances of the mind are not happiness, that sentient beings are suffering, and that the only end to suffering is enlightenment. Yet we allow ourselves to slide up and down every day. We get excited about some project, we get enthusiastic, but it always comes to a dead stop. It always ends. It has never, 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 never continued until it gave you supreme happiness. So, when we think about constructing the foundation for our spiritual practice, Jetsama says that the first brick of this is that all sentient beings are suffering. Now let's put the next one on top of it. There's an end to suffering and it's enlightenment. Just 2 bricks. And already we find that we're not secure behind those 2 bricks. We don't fully believe in that. We might say that we believe that all sentient beings are suffering. We might say that we believe enlightenment is the end of suffering. But Jetsama says, can you tell me how that can coexist with the tendency to let your mind drift, relying on circumstances to make it happy, being the victim of circumstances that make it unhappy? How do we allow that? We forget. We're caught in a dream and we lose faith. So how are you going to practice this Vajrayana, the diamond vehicle, the tantric teachings of Buddhism, passed from teacher to disciple, that can lead to the attainment of enlightenment in one lifetime, a path with sincerity and stability for the rest of your life until some potential comes for you to achieve supreme enlightenment? Do you believe that that can happen? So how do we stop forgetting this? How do we stop forgetting and stop just being carried away by these highs and lows of circumstances? We really like to be busy. We like our busyness. So the good news is we don't have to give that busyness up. You can stay busy. You can keep it. And actually, it might be good for you to be a little busier than you are. Your mind might have a little bit too much free time on its hands, which is why you spend all that time in front of your mental television with your internal soap operas blaring. But instead of being busybodies, obsessed with the drama, the highs and lows, and the who said what, and what am I going to do, and who am I, and what do I want out of life, and instead of being, and what's the gossip, who else is up to things, and let me know about that. Let me call people and find out what they're up to. All of this just drama and busyness and gossip. Instead of being busy in that way, we can practice being busy, being Buddhas. So I love this quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. He says, "Don't worry if you feel you can only do one tiny good thing in one small corner of the cosmos. Just be a Buddha body in that one place." So that's a thought I would like to give you today, is to be a Buddha body in that one place instead of wherever you are. You don't have to think that you're going to do some great, miraculous, mountain moving thing. Your job is just to be a Buddha body in the one place that you are. Just in the moment, wherever you are, can you be a Buddha body in that one place? So how do we do that? How do we learn to be busy in a way where we can be practicing being Buddhas at any moment in our day? How do we make ourselves busy with that instead of the other stuff? So one idea is, instead of letting your mind spin around on its hamster wheel like it normally does, you can give your mind a task, like contemplating the 4 thoughts. You might play a game with yourself. Anytime you catch yourself all wrapped up in ordinary life and your desires and your stresses and whatnot, and you notice that I've just completely forgotten about the 4 thoughts. Anytime you catch yourself that wow, I'm completely distracted and wrapped up in what I'm doing. Anytime you remember to do this, challenge yourself to tie your present experience to one of the 4 thoughts. For instance, when you find yourself missing the faces of your loved ones who you haven't been able to see during this entire pandemic, which is nearly a year, just think of how much more you will miss seeing the face of your teacher or the image of the Buddha and hearing their teachings once this life is over and your merit is gone. Remind yourself of this precious opportunity to practice and how fleeting it is, how quickly that, what comes together always comes apart. So, as we're seeing that now we're separated from our loved ones, we've been taken apart from them. We can use that to remind ourselves that at some point, this meeting with our teacher, with this precious opportunity, with meeting the Dharma, at some point, if we don't take advantage of it, if we don't create the causes, that merit will dry up and it will end. And we will experience the pain of separation and of confusion and ignorance and not knowing what to do, how to get out of our suffering. When you're drinking tea and it grows cold, drinking tea now. When you're drinking tea and it grows cold, you might go, right, impermanence, good reminder. When you're cleaning out your fridge and exploring all of the nasty, moldy things that were once delicious food, you could consider impermanence. When you go to the bathroom, you can consider impermanence. That delicious dinner that you had last night is now in the toilet. Wow, makes you wonder why you put so much value on that. When you clip your fingers or wash your hair or vacuum or any of the monotonous daily activities that we have to do over and over and over again, you can remember that the reason you have to do this again and again is because of impermanence. Because none of these states of being of, you did the dishes and, oh, look, you have to do them again. They don't stay clean. Why? Impermanence. As you read the news, you can contemplate the karma involved in the stories you're reading about. What karma led to this situation? What karma is being created by the actions in this story? When you find yourself replaying a conversation in your head instead of playing a broken record, ask new questions. What was the motivation behind your words? What was the effect? How can you be more compassionate, patient, generous, etc. in the future? If you have a headache or any kind of bodily discomfort, you can remember that all sentient beings are suffering. You can think that this is nothing compared to the suffering of animals being led to slaughter or the suffering of beings burning in the hell realms. You can generate compassion for all suffering beings. And then you can pray that by your experience of suffering, may you take on the suffering of all beings so that they may be freed from suffering. And then your experience of suffering becomes meaningful. Or, another thing you can do, you can give your mouth a task and say some mantra. Any mantra means you are not wasting your time. Venerable Gyaltsen Rinpoche says, as you are working, don't ignore your work, but also say mantra as much as you can. If your work is something like sweeping or being a carpenter, then you can say mantra, no problem. Your mouth has that freedom. If you can't say it continuously, then again and again, here and there, piece by piece. We have so many pieces in one day or in 1 hour. Lots of mantras will fit there. Maybe one mantra takes 1 second. Maybe you just say one and then you have to get busy. Maybe you really need to focus so you don't chop your finger or whatever. Good, focus. Don't be stupid, pay attention. Then maybe 10 minutes later, another 1 second mantra. Then again, busy. That's okay. We can, over the course of our days, by doing this, by finding these moments to fit in virtuous contemplations, virtuous thoughts, remembering our guru, saying mantra, when we stay mindful of every opportunity that we have in our day to engage in virtuous actions, and we actually use that, we'll start changing our habits, and we'll actually start turning that tide of, instead of having the force of our habit be to think about ordinary things, we can start turning that habit into, what extraordinary thing could I be doing in this moment? And you just start remembering the Dharma more and more and more as you build the habit of thinking about it. But first you have to build that habit. And without that habit, you will, if you don't consciously create circumstances where you're going to engage in virtuous actions, you're not just going to feel like it. You know, it's not just going to randomly pop into your head like, oh, I should contemplate the suffering of the hell realms right now, or I should think about my teacher. We don't have that habit yet, so we have to consciously create that in our days. And if we contemplate the 4 thoughts, we'll be motivated to do that more and more and more, because we'll understand what is worthwhile, what has lasting benefit, and what is just the normal hamster wheel of samsara. So a long time ago, maybe like 10, maybe not, I don't know, maybe like 10 years ago, I used to work in a coffee shop. We also made crepes and gelato. And I loved being sent to the back of the shop to make the crepe batter, because I would sing mantra the whole time and make wishing prayers that everyone who ate it would connect to the Dharma and be freed from suffering. And how can you have a bad day when you're doing that, right? That's one of the lovely things about jobs where you work with your hands. Your minds and your mouth are often free to practice. When your labor is intellectual or verbal, it becomes a little harder to find those opportunities, but they're still there. You can say mantra while you make tea and you're waiting for the water to boil. You can say mantra while you're tying your shoes. You can say mantra while you're washing your hands. You can say mantra while you're out walking your dog and waiting for them to poop. You can do it anytime. Anytime, if, you know, you can be saying mantra. Venerable Gelter Rinpoche says, again and again and again. That's important. It can be that your mouth is filled with mantra, except when it is busy eating or drinking. Otherwise, mantra can fit there. This tiny instant, that tiny instant, maybe just one mantra or just 2 or 3. That's okay. Just slowly try. And you don't have to worry if you don't have your mala with you. That's no big deal. Gelter Rinpoche says, your brain is your mala. You know if you said one mantra or not. So I wanted to share, last thing today, I wanted to share this song of Milarepa. So Milarepa was a yogi who is revered by all Tibetans. He lived in, in the common era of 1051 to 1135. So a long, long time ago. And Milarepa, at that time, people still had the exact same issues with being busy and focused on ordinary minutia instead of what's truly meaningful. Everyone still had the same problems back then. So let me normalize that for you. This is the human condition. So in Milarepa, so one time when Milarepa went begging for alms, he came to the center of a large town where people were working on a house, and he lay down to sleep there. And one of the female benefactors said to him that she would bring him some food if he would patch up a bag for her. And she left the bag and the materials to fix it with Milarepa. So after a while, she returned to pick up the bag and said, when they say that yogis should just be kicked out, they are really right. Here you have nothing to do, and you couldn't even put on one patch. How shameful. So then Milarepa went to where the workers were eating, and he said, he begged for alms from them. And the female benefactor said, I have no need for someone who doesn't help with the work when his body is free, but helps with the eating when his mouth is free. And Milarepa said, I was busy doing something more important than your work, so I wasn't free to do it. And she says, well, what work were you doing that you were so engaged in? And he said, I am free, but in my being free, I was busy doing these practices. And then he sang the song of realization. He sang, I prostrate to the Guru Lords, in particular, the one who is so kind, protect me, I pray. When people like you look at me, I seem to be free. But when I look, I seem to be busy. In the field that is birthless and free of extremes, I build the castle of meditative concentration. Therefore, I'm not free to build an earthen castle. On the northern plain of Dharmata's emptiness, I tame the rough earth of the afflictions. Therefore, I'm not free to plow my father's field. At the border of ineffable non-duality, I tame the enemy, the demon of clinging to an I. Therefore, I'm not free to tame hostile enemies. To the palace of non-dual mind itself, I invite the bride of Dharma practice. Therefore, I'm not free to take an ordinary wife. In my own body, the mandala of the victorious ones, I care for the small child of awareness. Therefore, I'm not free to care for a snot-nosed child. In the all-joyous courtyard of my upper torso, I amass the wealth of hearing and contemplating. Therefore, I'm not free to amass material wealth. On the mountain of unchanging Dharmakaya, I look after the wild horse of self-awareness. Therefore, I'm not free to look after cattle and sheep. Out of the mud of flesh and bones, I build the stupa of spontaneous presence. Therefore, I'm not free to make any satsa molds. In the center of my heart, a three-sided vessel, I hoist up the oil lamp of luminosity. Therefore, I'm not free to make offerings for oracle trances. In the shrine room of bliss and emptiness inseparable, at the tanka of the mind and equipoise, I make the offering of the unchanging feast. Therefore, I'm not free to make material offerings. On the paper of the completely pure mind itself, I write the letters of non-attachment. Therefore, I'm not free to take down any notes. Into the skull cup of emptiness, I pour the poisons in sets of 3 and 5. Therefore, I'm not free to do black magic rites. At the threshold where love's anguish meets my mind, I care for my kin, the 6 realms beings. Therefore, I'm not free to care for my own family. The key instructions I received from the Father Gurus, I carry that load into my mind stream. Therefore, I'm not free to do ordinary activity. In the solitary mountain retreats, I practice toward the essence, enlightenment. Therefore, I'm not free to fall into the sleep of ignorance. With my mouth, the opening of a 3-sided conch, I sing out this melody of the key instructions. Therefore, I'm not free to idly chatter. So this was a song that Milarepa sang for this crowd, and upon hearing this, everyone who heard it, their outlook changed. And they said, are you the Jetson Milarepa? And he said, yes, I am the one who cannot work. And they said, how fortunate we are. And they did prostrations and circumambulation and made abundant offerings to him. And this woman confessed for not recognizing this. And then there were some youths among them who said, we also want to practice Dharma in the presence of the Guru. What is your monastery? Who provides you with your provisions? And so Milarepa sang this song in response. Sorry, hold on. Not that one. So he keeps singing. He talks to them. And then he goes and he talks to other people. Okay, so then he sings this other song. This is the second song I wanted to share. He says, may the unequaled Guru always be seated at my crown. Is samsara a great ocean However much you scoop out, it's never exhausted. Are the 3 jewels like Meru, the king of mountains? There is no one who can bear them away. Is Samaya just empty talk? There is no one who really keeps it. Is the genuine Dharma of the Vinaya like lepers' corpses on the road? No one tries to lay hold of it. Are the fur-lined cushions full of thorns? Those great teachers do not stay upon them well. Is striving in the Vinaya discipline without any meaning? Ordained monks don't keep their discipline. Are there Mongolian bandits in the mountain retreats? Meditators just travel down into the towns. Are there inferior gates of birth in the Bardo state? Students just exert themselves in cleaning. And by this he meant that rather than study, students just engage themselves in ordinary tasks like sweeping. Are woolen clothes in the next life very precious? The nuns all labor over wool in their looms. Is there some fear that samsara will be emptied? Monks and nuns give up their vows to have kids. Is there nothing to drink or eat in the next life? Male and female benefactors don't give anything away. Is there suffering in the divine realm of Akanishta? There are so few people who go there. Is there happiness in the hells below? All the people with harsh mouths are trying to get there. Suffering in the lower realms are the result of negativity. Abandon non-virtue and put effort in virtuous actions. Then you'll be without regrets at death, and your mind will be happy. So I want to share that because, for one thing, I love Milarepa's idea of busyness. And I hope that you will consider being busy in the same way of, I'm too busy saying mantra to engage in idle chatter. I'm too busy reading the Dharma to scroll on social media. I'm too busy listening to the divine words of my guru to listen to pop music. We can kind of flip that script in our head. Normally we think, oh, I'm so busy. I have to go run errands, and I have to do this, I have to do that. I can't possibly spend time meditating, or I don't have time to practice. I've got things to do. You can flip that instead and say, I don't have time for those things. I have Dharma practice to do. So we can flip that script. And then also the second song, what I really love about that is he's really just like poking fun at the logic of people have. Are woolen clothes so valuable in the next life? Because the nuns just devote their time to their looms. Like it makes you question, just like, what do I think is going to benefit me in the next life? Is there, you might question, like, is there going to be a pop culture quiz after death? Is that why I'm spending so much time reading, gossipy articles on the internet about Billie Eilish and Taylor Swift? Is that going to be meaningful in my next life? I'm very devoted to drinking tea and coffee, for instance. Is there a tea and coffee realm in the next life? Is that where I'm going? Because I'm getting really good at making coffee. We can kind of poke fun at ourselves in this same way of, is this what I think is going to benefit me in my next life? Is this what I think is going to benefit others? All of this stuff that I spend all of my time on, is that going to help me or anyone else in any way? So I hope that you will contemplate the 4 thoughts and reevaluate your idea of being busy, and reevaluate what you're busy with. And I hope that by contemplating the 4 thoughts, you are able to take every opportunity in this life to put the Dharma into practice, and that by doing so, you achieve supreme enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. And so now we will say the dedication prayer to that effect. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms.